Hello, my name is Naive Libertarian Politics, and today we'll be doing episode 10 of the History of the Republican Party series. This episode will be covering Nixon's return to politics, his rise to power, and his eventual downfall. So yeah, let's get into it. So we have the fifth party system and sixth party system Wikipedia pages to represent the party systems we're in. You can see here that the fifth party system page says it ends in 1976. But the six-party system one says the six-party system started in 1968, so it's an overlap, so we'll really be covering the overlap in this episode. So, yeah. So first, 1968, Nixon returns to politics. And he's returned to politics after losing the 1960 presidential election to John Kennedy in a close election, and losing the 1962 gubernatorial race of California. And that puts a damper in his political career, and so he does not run in 1964, which detrimented the Republican Party because he was a unifying force between the conservatives and moderate liberals, than the Rockefeller Republicans and the Goldwater Republicans, as you may have as you may have seen in my other video in 1964. So you can see that Nixon barely wins it over Ronald Reagan, who does go on to become president and becomes a very famous president. But Richard Nixon goes on to win it. He actually does not win the plurality of the vote. He loses the plurality of the vote by 0.4, which is very close. So he managed to win the delegate majority, a very large majority of the delegates. So yeah, he gets chosen and he wins. But you can see George Wallace. He was a Democrat, so he kind of took the Southern votes from the what would go Democrat and Hubert Humphrey, so he kind of put a drag on Democrats across the nation, because you take into account that in like California, maybe Hubert Humphrey, if George Wallace hadn't run, maybe Hubert Humphrey would have won California, but because George Wallace, obviously not, Nixon's from California, so he would have won it, but that's just an example. And he ended up winning fairly well. And 1972 comes around, and he's done okay. I'm not a big fan of how he took us off the gold standard. It was in an attempt to fight inflation, which I respect, but it was. I like that he wanted to fight inflation, but it just, I don't like that he took us off the gold standard. Richard Nixon, he would win handily in the Republican nomination in 1972, and when the election comes around, 1972, the presidential election, he wins major, one of the biggest, this third largest win in the history of the Republic, or history of the nation. George McGovern, he won D.C. and Massachusetts, and John Hosper's got a single elector, faithful elector from Virginia. He basically, if it wasn't for that Virginia elector, he would have got another one most likely, which it's pretty interesting. He wins handily. It's like he wins like 60% of the vote. It's because the reason is George McGovern was a very radical person. Nixon was pro getting out of that, but that was also partially because he wanted to get rid of inflation, which is respectable. But George McGovern was like a radical hippie kind of guy, which caused him to lose the nomination. But as many of you know, Richard Nixon, he was a Watergate, which if you really take a look at it, it was not the worst thing that's ever happened. It was really overplayed by the media. I know that may sound terrible, may sound wrong, but or like abhorrent to say, but it's true. He really did not do that bad. I mean, it was not that bad. It was not. Watergate was not that bad. It was like, even he himself, he was a seasoned politician, so he'd seen stuff like this all the time. It was really done by, the media and stuff. They'd overplayed it a lot to get, and it worked, and he's regarded as a bad president because of Watergate. And it's very famous, most famous political scandal in history. And so he resigns, and Gerald Ford, who would go on to become the only president to never win a presidential election as neither vice president nor president, and he wins the electoral, he wins the nomination, really only based off of his incumbency. In my opinion, if he was not incumbent or did not have that incumbency push of winning, he would not have won. It would have gone to Ronald Reagan. You can see that neither candidate even received half the majority of the candidates. So it was an odd election. And actually, Ronald Reagan was so popular among the Republican Party that 1976 comes around, and Gerald Ford loses to Jimmy Carter, but our good boy Ronnie gets an electoral vote in Washington, another faceless elector, like in '72 with John Hospers. And Ronald Reagan wins it, but of course, in the end, Jimmy Carter does not win Jimmy Carter wins the election, and Gerald Ford goes on to be the only president never to win an election, which is unfortunate, you could say. What you need to take away from this video is that Nixon, in 1968, Nixon turned to politics after some shortcomings in the early 60s, and he manages to win, although in some I guess you could say shady circumstances. He does not he wins the presidential election, and he wins the nomination on some he does not win the plurality of the popular vote in the nomination, but he does go on to be nominated and win the presidential election. And then he does some stuff that are, from a libertarian perspective, is okay, not the best. Gold standard, he gets us off that, which is not great. But he does try to get us out of the war in Vietnam, which is good. But he manages to win huge in 1972 because George McGovern was a radical hippie, which is surprising. I guess you could say the Democrats would nominate someone like that, but of course he had originally come up with a new nomination process, so of course he'd win. That's only theory, but in 1972 and 1974 he resigns, and that leads to the presidency of Gerald Ford, which does not go very well. He was not that bad of a president, but he does not win the presidential election. And also, you can see how popular Ronald Reagan becomes. He actually does fairly well in both nominations. So yeah, as always, this is just my opinion. My name is Naive Libertarian Politics. Take everything with a grain of salt. Yeah, expect another video to come. I'm gonna make another video today because I did not make a video yesterday. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.